Hello, Trail Seeker, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Learn True Health podcast. Today's episode is uplifting and beautiful, and it touches on this blend of energy and spiritual, emotional, and physical healing, bringing it all together. Something that weaves throughout is music. Music can affect us spiritually, can affect our energy, our mood, our psyche, and it can even affect us on a physical level. So I know you're going to really enjoy today's episode with Flicka Rahn, who is an expert in using music to heal us emotionally, physically, and energetically. I am so excited for the Learn True Health Home Kitchen. I've been working on it, filming with Naomi since October. We launched just 2 weeks ago, and already all the members who've joined are really enjoying it. If you haven't joined yet, I highly recommend checking it out. Go to learntruehealth.com/home kitchen. That's learntruehealth.com/home kitchen. Every week I upload new recipes, new videos, new lessons. There's over 5 hours worth of content already in the membership, and every week we're adding more and more. If you want to learn how to use food in a way that heals your body, you're going to love our membership. It's affordable. Everyone can afford it. And I want you to use the coupon code LTH to get the member discount. So it's affordable, and we teach you how to cook delicious food, save you time in the kitchen, heal your body with food, and food that your family will enjoy. There's wonderful tips in there for shifting your life and shifting your habits in a way that improve your health. So no matter where you are on the health spectrum, and no matter what diet you follow, you will get fantastic tips and fantastic recipes that you can implement to get more healing foods into your life. So please come check it out. I would love for you to see it. We're having so much fun sharing all these wonderful recipes and videos with you. learntruehealth.com/home kitchen. That's learntruehealth.com/home kitchen, and use the coupon code LTH. Come join us. We're having a ton of fun. All the members who've joined so far are really loving it, and I know that you will too. Excellent. Thank you so much for being a listener. Thank you so much for sharing this podcast with those you care about, so we can help as many people as possible to learn true health. Welcome to the Learn True Health podcast. I'm your host, Ashley James. This is episode 409. I am so excited for today's guest. We have on the show Flicka Rahn, who's a specialist in healing with music. This is a topic that's really near and dear to my heart. My dad, he loved music. He was so passionate about it. He was in the music industry in a unique way. He designed a type of speaker, these speakers that are in like home entertainment systems. He designed a type of speaker that you only needed 2 of them, but that you could hear from different directions. And this is back in the 80s and 90s. So now I know like everyone just has a tiny little Amazon device in their corner and it plays music. But back then he designed these speakers that he called it spatial sound, that you could be anywhere in the room and you could hear a sound from somewhere else in the room because it would throw the sound around. So he always played music, and he always shared his passion about music with me. And growing up, I complained that I was only a teenager that would yell at her dad to turn down the music. He would wake me up playing Fool in the Rain, Led Zeppelin on a Saturday morning. So I just smile every time I hear Led Zeppelin, because he loved all music, but he would play everything for me. And so growing up, him and I would share, we would share our CD collections, and we'd go to the CD store together, and we just shared it so much that so much of music for me brings back these really positive memories of love and a connection that I had with my dad. And so for me, I've found that music is healing when you can link it to something like love, and you can resonate a sense of like love and connection and that helped me to heal after losing him. So I've always had a deep connection with music, and I know that it's part of us. I feel like it's part of our DNA. So when you reached out, Flicka, to be on the show to share your expertise around using music as a form of healing, I thought this would be a wonderful experience for all the listeners, because all the listeners are here to learn how to achieve true health. And there's a little known thing that is very affordable that we can all do, and that's using music as a therapy, as a way to heal. So welcome to the show.
Well, I'm so happy to be here, Ashley, and thank you for this this really wonderful opportunity to share what I know and what I know works. So I've had my entire life has been revolved around music and the sharing of music and teaching of music and playing music and composing music. I taught for 25 years at Texas A&M University as a voice teacher, and I also had a pretty extensive career as a opera singer. So, and I have music published by for soprano and piano. So I really have studied this. I mean, it's a never-ending study of music and the depths of how it can reach deeply into us emotionally and physically and spiritually. And yes, indeed, what you did share with your father through music was a sense of love, and there is no greater force for healing than love. So that is really what, after I retired from the university, I became impassioned with knowing about what has been used by indigenous healers and throughout history as healing music and specifically sound. So I did a great deal of research and study about those different examples, and because I have so much experience singing in all forms of worship, temples and churches and fellowships, and I just found a lot of commonalities that I then went on to explore at a deeper level, and went and experienced even into South America, into the Amazon, to really understand the healing nature of the music that they used, the shamans in South America and the Amazon. So all of this has come around to broaden my. I really laugh. People say you're not retired. No, I've just found another job, and that is creating and composing this music that is specifically uses the elements of sacred music that I've discovered, and using those elements to then create my own specific type of sound, which I think you will be playing for the listeners at some point.
Yes, I'll definitely play your music that you've given us in today's interview. Did something happen in your life where you were sick or didn't feel well and you used music, the vibration? Or maybe you could explain a bit about this also, that music is energy and our bodies are energy, where we're made up of energy. And so using music as a vibration that moves through your whole body can help to correct the energy in our body. And I know this is really out there, but if you think about it, we're not solid. Nothing is solid. Everything is atoms vibrating, and we're all a vibration and energy. And so is music. And there's been people who've shared that certain frequencies, certain hertz, have healing properties. So was there ever a point in your life where you fell ill and used music or had an experience of healing through music?
Oh, absolutely. But I do want to return to specific frequencies and how some are more powerfully accepted by your body than others. But let's talk about the time. Actually, I was in Peru, and I used to suffer really pretty profoundly with migraine headaches. And because I was about to experience sacred ceremony with the Shipibo Indians, I could not take any medicine for a month. And I was just about at my wit's end because I used it to help with my migraine headaches. So honestly, one night I was, I went down there with my brother, and he was in another place in the hotel, and I said, Flicka, you have physician, heal yourself. Okay, this is where the rubber hits the road. So I said, all right, so what I'm going to do, I will tone every note to correspond with the resonance frequencies of each of the chakras. And I did. I started at the root chakra with the pitch, which is designated as the note C, and I for about 10 minutes, and then I moved up to the next chakra, and I just really moved all the way up the body to the crown. And by the time I had finished toning, and it was about an hour, that I had vocalized all of those pictures, the headache was totally gone, and it never came back. So that's a powerful way, because I was self-creating frequency and vibration. And we know that quantum physics now teaches us this new view of reality, which has moved beyond Newtonian physics, in that everything vibrates. Everything has frequency, and yes, there is nothing really solid in the quantum world. So where I then began to work, and my knowledge and my studies, is how do I affect this quantum world that is really at the base of what our bodies are, to help people with illnesses that are well, there's lots of causes for that, for the illness to appear into your physical body, but they all really start at the etheric body, which is the energetic body that is right beyond your physical body, about 2 inches away from your physical body. So that is where I, as a sound therapist, work, is in the etheric body, and trying to bring all of that energy into harmony, and balancing the chakras, which respond to sound and vibration, and to the healing touch, which is really the vibration of love. And Reiki has a part in that as well. But by balancing and realigning and harmonizing the entire body, the electromagnetic field around your body, then healing can take place. And I have witnessed so much of this with my clients, and sometimes after I work with a client and really work very closely with the energetic bodies, it takes a couple of weeks, because for the etheric body to then harmonize the physical body. So it's not very often, although in my case it was, because I think I was highly stressed, and stress, as we know, is not something that can help healing. So, does that answer your question, Ashley? I'm sorry, I went on and on.
It's okay. You've given me 10 more questions.
Okay.
So, just that one example where you used the frequency for each chakra, and within an hour your headache or your migraine was gone.
Yeah.
It's interesting, though. You were reaching for the Advil, or you're reaching for the ibuprofen, whatever drug you're reaching for every month when you had these headaches. But then when you were up against a challenge, the challenge to go drug-free for a month,
yes,
then you were left with needing to dig into your own tool belt. And I think that that's actually a really great challenge for all of us. We all have resources, and sometimes we forget. Sometimes we'll reach for the coffee over-the-counter medication, right? The sugar, the coffee, the stimulants, the uppers, the downers, whatever, over-the-counter stuff to get us through the day, to mask a symptom. And I love that you challenged yourself. You took on the challenge to not medicate for a month because
Yeah.
you were walking into a situation where the healer asked you for 1 month to be medication free. And that is a great challenge, because sometimes we know we have these resources, but sometimes we reach for what's easy just to get us through the day. And if we challenged ourselves to not self-medicate, to not go for the alcohol at the end of the day, or the sugar when we have the sugar craving, or the coffee when we're tired, but instead dig deeper into our own tool belt of resources and realize that we probably have, or the body is talking to us, and the body probably is saying, I'm dehydrated, I need to rest, I need some more joy in my life, I need to eat fruit, or whatever the body is saying. The body is, and you're in case your body was saying, I need to be in alignment, my energy needs to be in alignment. And so you dug deep into your tool belt, and you used the very tools that you have at your disposal, and your headache went away. We've been trained that it's really easy to reach for the over-the-counter medication or reach for those things that mask our symptoms. But when we mask symptoms, we're actually not achieving health. We're stunting our own growth and our own personal growth and development. So I love that you use that as an example. When you did that, though, for that hour I think you said you were at a hotel. Were you singing to yourself for an hour?
Oh, absolutely. I was. And it didn't need to be loud, because even subtle, it was toning was what it was, Ashley. And toning is not really, it's chanting without the words. So it's just singing a pitch or a tone without words. So it's more like singing an om. But I would do it on the resonant pitch of each of the chakras. So starting off with the note C.
Can you teach us?
Absolutely. And I think it's really, thank you for letting me have the opportunity to do this. It's important that your body be, check it for stress, so that if you are sitting up, and in this case, I was sitting up on the bed, because the breath then can be deeper into your belly, like a soft belly breath. And so I would breathe easily into my belly, and then just, okay, here I go. And I just did that, using all of the resonant pitches of each of the chakras. And as I closed, did you hear, as I closed into the sound, you can feel the vibrations in your head. It was almost like an internal massage, and very calming, very comforting, and very ultimately healing. So that's all toning is. It's no big mystery. And when I'm teaching people about toning, in my case, I picked a specific pitch, and then I moved up the scale. But I teach people that whatever tone your body wants to make is the absolute perfect tone for whatever you need. Your body knows, so it will produce the pitch that best heals it. So I always yield to the body wisdom in that case, and it didn't have to. So when I'm working with people, it doesn't have to match my pitch. It is because we each choose the pitch that the body wants to hear or to feel. And of course, it's frequency, and frequency carries information, and you can feel your heart vibrate through all of these, this toning exercise. It's wonderful. I mean, you can even do this in the car when you're driving and you're in really bad traffic. Honestly, Ashley, I have to tell you this, but when I go to the dentist, And that is not my favorite place. But I tell the dentist, I said, I'm going to be toning the minute you start that drill. And they expect it. And number one, it blocks out a lot of those higher partials in that drill sound that makes me crazy, but it also calms me down, and I'm breathing slower because I'm releasing the sound slower than the breath I take in. So all your listeners may try this the next time you go to the dentist. I mean, it works like a charm.
Can you explain how you do that when your mouth is open, they're drilling in your mouth, or they're cleaning your teeth? How do you do this?
Okay, so here I am in my studio right now, and I'm opening my mouth like I have to, and the dentist. So it's like this. So the back of my tongue is up against the back of my throat, so as to not be, swallowing all that water they put in your mouth when they're cleaning. But
Okay.
I don't go into the sound, the M sound at the end. I just hold one note for a long time, and again, it doesn't have to be a specific pitch. It's whatever your body wants to sound at the time. And you think about it, Ashley. I mean, for any really emotional response that we have to an event, be it fear or terror. I mean, there's always an explosion of sound that we make as our species has done that to try to balance the body. So screaming when someone is afraid is very beneficial to help bring the body back into balance. And of course, when we're really happy and laughing or singing, it's all sound related as the body continues to try to keep itself in a balanced, energetic state. So that just occurred to me. Sound is very connected. Our own sounds that we make to our emotional state at the time. So, by staying quiet, if there's something that you need to cry about, your body will take that energy and hide it into the etheric body. So it's better to go ahead and cry or scream or sound or something so that you keep the energy moving out rather than pulling it in to be hidden and that you have to deal with later at some point, because you will.
It's so true. Crying is so cathartic, and letting it
Yep.
out. We're taught in this society to hold it all in, and then it explodes like a volcano, right? And it causes so much internal stress. But let it out.
Yes.
I like that you said that when you do this oming, your out breath is longer than your in breath. And I recently had an interview with Forrest Knudsen, who's a yogi, and he teaches how to create the heart rate variability, which is now the number one way of measuring stress. It's the most accurate way of measuring stress, and they're now seeing that it's the most accurate way of measuring your longevity. That if you have poor heart rate variability, you are likely to die sooner than those who have very good heart rate variability. And he said the key to achieving heart rate variability, meaning very good, healthy heart rate variability where the heart and the body is in a low state of stress, is to make the out breath be a little bit longer than the in breath. And so by you doing this, you're actually practicing, not only are you using frequency and energy healing, but you are also creating heart rate variability and decreasing stress in the body.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I know exactly about what you were speaking, and I've used the breath work as well, but to add a toning sound to that is even better, because then you're giving your body some vibrations and frequencies that really help with the alignment. and the heart rate variability. Yes, stress is a killer. Stress is a killer, and we have a stress epidemic now. And my music really addresses stress in a big way. And I think that most healing music from Egypt, from Tibet to India, to all of the indigenous peoples, use ways to decrease stress.
Now, what about those who are, I have some listeners who are Christian and might not feel comfortable saying Om because it's, they're associating it with Buddhism or a different religion. Could they say anything? Could they
Sure, they could say Amen.
Amen? Yes, that's what I was going to say.
Sure.
Could they chant Amen to themselves? I know that in the Catholic Church and in the very ancient, Catholicism, chanting was a really big thing that they would chant over and over again. And so I was imagining you could just take a nice deep breath and say Amen over and over again, sing it to yourself at whatever pitch your body wanted.
Let's just try it.
Okay, let's try it. Listener, you try it too. Let's all do it. Let's do it together, okay?
Remember, it doesn't matter what note you pick. Okay, so take the deep breath in. Amen. Take another breath. Amen.
That's really fun. It feels so calming. It really feels like a blanket of comfort came over me.
Yeah. Yes, Ashley. Yeah. And you see, even with just 2 amens, that anchors you again into a feeling of full of completeness and peace. So yeah, I think this is it's a beautiful practice.
And one could, if one was spiritual, could imagine connecting with source, with God, with Jesus, with whomever they want to connect with, could imagine bathing in the energy of divine love. They could, take this kind of like to the next level, right? Because you're incorporating so many senses. You're feeling your voice. You're breathing in and then breathing out. You're feeling a vibration around your whole body. It's sound bathing, but you're feeling this vibration inside you. You're hearing it, and then you're feeling this energy. So there's several things going on at once.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And if you didn't want to close your eyes, you could look at a picture of whoever, a picture of Jesus or a picture of Buddha or a mandala with different colors. I mean, there are a lot of ways to stimulate the senses through even sight, and also the kinesthetic and the aural with your ears, and So yeah, it's very powerful, very powerful.
Now, each chakra has a different frequency. So how do you then go up? If you said you could start at whatever frequency your body wanted, then how do you address each chakra?
Okay, so in that case, I would pick the specific pitch. I would start at C, and I'm getting a C for you right now. And we're going to start with a C. That's a C. So I would do that for as long as I felt like I needed it, and then the next pitch is a D. E. And if you want to go down an octave, I don't think I have a low E, but if that's not comfortable for you, then you can go down an octave. So there are lots of tools on apps that you can get as a tuner, and they will tell you what note is C and D and E.
Okay. Now I know you have a CD out that people could download. I think it's called Chakra Soundscapes. Is that it?
That is exactly it, and actually, that is what I used when I was in Peru. I put my earphones on and I toned through each of those tracks. So they're 8 minutes a piece. So I was toning for a long time. The tracks and the sound lead you gently into that pitch. People would enjoy that. They certainly could go to iTunes and get Chakra Soundscapes by Icaros, that is the name of our group, and tone along. And just know that I've been toning along with you. And actually, my voice is also on each of the tracks. So yeah, that'd be an easy way to start to, so you don't have to find an app and know where the note C is. You can just tone along with the CD.
Very cool. Tell me about Icaros. That's your band?
Well, it is actually two of us. It is my co-composer, and when I did all this research about trying to find the common elements of sacred music throughout the world, throughout history, and also through all of the sacred expressions of sound and music, I identified those elements. And then I asked Daniel, who is an incredible pianist, and to help me create what I knew in my mind I wanted to create. And the incredible thing about the CD, which if people hear it, is all of the music is improvised, which means we wrote nothing down.
Oh, cool.
We went into the studio and I said, all right, we're going to use C as our resonant pitch. And we're also going to play around with the Major Triad. And for those of your folks who don't know what that is, it's like bum, bum, bum. I mean, everybody knows that combination of pitches. And then we also used a lot of other intervals that have a very strong effect on our Western ears to help us release energy. Well, let me come back to that. So Daniel and I did this, and I used my crystal singing bowls, which I have here in the studio. And I used a whole set of those, and we went through each of the resonant pitches of each of the chakras, and his harmonies are absolutely just exquisite. And so I then improvised around his harmonic progressions.
Oh, I love it.
We both know how to improvise. So this really came from just this outpouring of love that I was feeling. And we both get in kind of the same spiritual space, and then we create from that space. So every time we perform, it is all improvised, and we feel the audience, and then really it is a co-creative experience, the audience and us.
It's like spiritual jazz.
That's exactly what it is, Ashley.
I want to see you live. Oh my gosh. Do you tour?
Yes, we do.
Okay, well, tell me when you're coming up to Seattle.
I will. We're about to go to Palm Spring in about 3 weeks to perform. It's not even really performing. It's to offer the experience is more like it, because it's meditation to a sales meeting of Tito's Vodka. Asked us to come.
So like get hammered and spiritual at the same time. It'd be really cool if they don't have a hangover the next day, because you were like attuning their bodies.
I did talk to them. I said, we got to do this in the morning. So I've done that, and we've also gone to some conventions of doctors and holistic healers. We are going to Mexico in March for a big holistic spiritual festival outside of Mexico City. And this is people are hungry for this now because there is so much stress, Ashley, and we've lost touch with our hearts, honey. It's we've lost touch, and what Daniel and I offer is a way to touch back in and make a connection within yourself, to your own heart, and then it's so easy to love everybody else. It just naturally flows. So that's what we are finding is during our live performances, this happens, and everybody just gets up and all they want to do is hug each other. It's just great.
Oh my gosh, if the whole world did that, can you imagine the amount of change that we could make? And I love that that's your mission. Back when I was 19, I stayed at Kripalu, which is I think it's the largest yoga residential center in the United States. It can house over 200 people. And I stayed there for a whole month. I took their 200-hour bodywork training program, and I got to experience several different types of music healing. I had a session with didgeridoos where they would play didgeridoos on my body. They put we lay down like a daisy, like we're petals of a daisy, and he would stand in the middle and he'd play the didgeridoo straight on top of each chakra. There's nothing like it. I can still feel it when I think about it. It's pretty amazing.
That is, now see, the didgeridoo is so rich in overtones and what we call partials. So what it does is totally align, it's like a buffet for your body as far as a frequency and sound. I am a big believer in that, and gongs also offer the same thing. Oftentimes when I'm working with a client, I will put the bowl right on their body to kind of feed that chakra. That's what happened to you. And I bet it was an amazing experience.
It was very cathartic. And then we also experienced, on a different day, we had the singing bowls. My favorite, however, was the crystal harmonica, and they let me play it. And that, I really want to own a crystal harmonica. Many people don't know what it is, but I believe it was Benjamin Franklin that created it. And it was at the time more popular than the piano, but it would break often in transportation. But it's a bunch of crystal bowls on a stick on their side, and it rotates slowly, and you have to have very clean fingers, and you get your fingers wet, and you play it as the bowls spin. Oh my gosh.
Ethereal.
Oh, it's so ethereal, right? Yes, yeah, it does. It just did something for me. So I had those experiences, and of course we would ohm. The whole group would ohm like several times, and you would be bathing in this vibration of the whole room. It just I can't even describe what would happen, but I felt so full and so complete. And then often every few days they had drumming circles where before or after lunch or before and after dinner, there would be 20 or 30 of us drumming, and the rest of us would just be dancing, just moving our bodies to the sounds of the beat.
Oh my,
and
fantastic.
Everyone wanted to just hug and love on each other and smile, and it would, no matter how angry. I was 19. I was going through so many emotions, as you can imagine, very angsty. And no matter how frustrated or angry or hormonal or whatever I was going through, I'd walk into that drum circle and I'd walk out just like my authentic self. Like all that other stuff would just peel away. So I've had these experiences with the using music as energy healing. And they were profound. I've never had a mundane music healing session. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Well, it's like affects like. So we are frequency, and so when we are into a therapeutic situation where there is vibration and frequency, there's something in us that knows this is who we really are. And although there is some sounds that are not healing that tend to be very disrupted to the energetic body. So I think, and people can know what those are, but just by your response to them. I've had some experience with people who are quite disturbed. Do you want me to go into that?
Sure.
Oh, okay. So there is. So I have a degree in counseling as well as I'm a master's in both music and counseling. So I have studied a lot of the psychological challenges that people had, and there is one way of releasing a lot of pain, and that's through this action of cutting your own skin. And from the person who's doing the cutting, it makes a lot of sense because it's a focus for the internal pain that they can't get to. So it feels actually good. Um, and and I've also experienced people also listen to extremely loud, disruptive, hard metal, dissonant music as a way of focusing on the inner environment, which is uh, you know, really probably frightened and in pain and in trauma. So it's making those two, the cutting and the listening to just really hard metal, dissonant, really loud, angry stuff. It's a way of putting it outside yourself rather than it being inside. And so I've seen that as somewhat therapeutic, but it certainly is not the end goal. So to understand why, if it were me, I would want to know, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? It feels good, but why does it feel good? And then move on to something that is more healing, because if you keep doing that disruptive music, it just keeps the neural pathways keep getting deeper and deeper. And it's very hard to then change and put in some other to feel the release of dopamine and serotonin through like meditation or meditative music. Did any of that make sense? So I'm very empathetic, I guess, to how people try to manage their pain, and yeah, and it can be very scary for them. Yes.
So if someone is cutting, or if someone recognizes, if they're at the point where they're recognizing that they're using self-harm in an effort to self-soothe, right?
Exactly.
How can they use sound or music to help them to make healthier choices for themselves and help them self-soothe in a way that isn't harmful?
Okay, glad you asked that. I am working with a neurologist now, and we are exploring the sound of the crystal singing bowls in working with our veterans that have experienced PTSD and are finding it very difficult to re-enter a society, where there's not the constant threat of death. So we do know that their brains have been changed by the trauma, and that there are some pathways in the brain in which, if they heard a backfire, the brain would interpret that differently than, say, maybe that heard the backfire, because I don't have the associative memory. So those neural pathways have not been made in me, but in some of our brave warriors, it has been. So how can you change the landscape inside your own brain to move away from that reactive, the reaction? So we also know that what wires together then repeats. So what you want to do is not try to make that go away, but spend time in meditation so that becomes more normal. The pathways of peace, of love, of calmness. And there have been a lot of success by people who have taught meditation and a lot of breath work to veterans, even over 1 week. they've seen changes and the brain has changed.
Really?
Yeah, there is a fantastic movie on, I think it's Netflix, called Free the Brain. Free the Brain or Free the Mind, one of the two, but and it recounts the study that was done with these brave warriors, and also with children with ADHD, who it seems that the neural pathways in there are different from someone of a child who can just sit calmly. So through meditation, through breathing, through learning those techniques, those kids have found some relief. So I think that we're now really starting to, we intuitively have known this stuff has worked, but now there is the data, the hard scientific data that's coming forward that's saying, yes, what we thought works is working. We can really see that. We can assign some numbers to that. And I really think that's the next step. And that is where I want to go with my neurologist friend who wants to do some studies with what is happening inside your brain when you hear the sound of the crystal singing bowls. Is there something with just the specific sound, with a specific frequency? We don't have those answers yet, but we will. So that's very exciting to me because I want to offer some palliative tool to people who are suffering. Yeah. And we all suffer to some degree through anxiety or stress or fear, and we all have that. So is there a way that we can anchor to a part of ourselves that is not in the drama, and then stay observing? I mean, that is a meditative technique, and I've really tried to pull away from the drama of the ego. But I think this helps. It helps connect to that higher expression of yourself through meditation, through listening to meditative music. You want to stay away from music with words because that then engages your left brain. And you want to get into the right brain, which is more holistic, more gestalt in nature.
I mean, music with words is okay. It's just if you're looking to heal with music, you want to avoid words, is what you're saying. But
Absolutely.
What about when you're chanting to yourself, like chanting the word Om? You are the instrument. The word is the instrument, in a sense, right? The word is the music coming from you, which is the instrument.
But you're not having to analyze it.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. So it just becomes like the sound you're making. And then at some point, because of the repetition, Ashley, the mind says, okay, nothing to see here. And it then can lift to a higher awareness.
It becomes, okay, yeah. So the chanting of a word becomes a meditation in and of itself and allows you to go into that higher state. I like that you mentioned becoming the observer. In neurolinguistic programming, that is a technique where you become the fly on the wall, the third person. Seeing your life as the third person allows you to analyze especially difficult situations, where you can then kind of start to see the whole scenario instead of be reactive in the situation. What about headphones versus allowing the music to bathe your whole body? Is there a big difference? Can we listen to this music and gain the same benefit from hearing it through headphones, or should we have speakers where we're having the sound bathe our whole body and our whole body feels the vibration?
I think that it addresses two therapeutic scenarios. If you listen to Chakra Soundscapes, for example, with headphones, you are harnessing the effects of entrainment, which the binaural entrainment, which is webbed into my music. Both of the CDs have theta brainwave state webbed in through binaural sound. Should I explain that?
We'll definitely get into binaural sounds in a minute, because I think that's an important topic. But I definitely want people to understand, like, when should they listen with headphones and when should they make sure their whole body's being bathed in sounds?
Okay, so when the whole body is being bathed in sound, the sound will then interact with the whole the etheric body, the physical and the etheric body, and that offers other benefits to because within our etheric body we have places where there's like stuck energy. So if you want to attain a deep meditative state in your brain, it's headphones. If you want to address the places in your etheric arc body that have stuck places or negative emotions are caught there, then listen with speakers on either side of you and just sit in the middle of it. Yes.
All right. I think you already opened us up to the next question, which is, tell us what binaural, I keep hearing binaural beats, right? And I've listened to them on YouTube. So what's binaural beats? What's binaural music? What does that mean?
Okay. So this was discovered, I can't give you the exact date of when it was discovered, but it's not been so very long ago because our technology has not allowed that with our earphones. But a binaural beat is, let's say, for example, okay, so your hearing, it goes from 20 hertz to 2,000 hertz. So all the way through there, you're able to hear like outside bird calls, your dog barking. That falls within that spectrum. But if you go below that 20 hertz, you can't hear it. The sound will be there, but you can't hear it. So what a binaural beat does is it's through the sound technology in the studio, they will produce a sound that is, let's say 15 hertz in one ear. And then in the other ear, they will produce 10 hertz. So those are two different frequencies and pitches. You won't be able to hear them, but your brain does. Your brain can discern the difference between those two, 15 and 10, as being 5 hertz. That is way below hearing. But that then measures and falls within the theta brainwave state, which is very deep. Meditation, that's where we see visions, that's where we go into these altered states, that really deep meditative state. So that's what binaural beats do for you, but you have to listen to them through your headphones so that you get the beat. Means that what you hear, you don't hear specific pitches, but you may hear a beat. That's why they called it binaural beats.
And what effect does listening in? So you want to listen to them with your headphones because they does something to the left and the right, syncing the brain, right? So what can they measure if you? I mean, you spent many years in academia, teaching. So I'm sure you like to look at the science of it. Have they ever hooked people up to machines or brainwaves? Have they measured? Have they see that it measurably makes a difference to the brainwaves by listening to this?
Absolutely. Yeah, through binaural beats, then they can put do some brain mapping and see that the person listening to the binaural beats has slipped into these lower expressions of your brainwave state, like theta, certainly alpha. So that's reproducible and provable. And that is this is the way I meditate. I put my earphones on and I listen to either my music or sometimes others that I really like, and I will very easily and quickly go into that low meditative state where the deep healing takes place. So yes, it's powerful and it's easy and it works. So I really encourage your listeners to find some music on YouTube that you really like that says it's binaural. Hook your put your earphones on and close your eyes and drift away.
Now, does it make the difference whether we put the right earbud in the right ear and the left earbud in the left ear?
No, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
No.
So it doesn't matter which way we have our headphones on as long as we're wearing headphones.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Interesting.
Yes.
I always come back to this same binaural beats soundtrack when I'm trying to concentrate. So if I find that I like to multitask, I've got a million things going at the same time, and I'm like, okay, I've got to get a podcast episode up. I got to finish editing this, and I've got to schedule this person. I've got all this stuff to do, and I really want to focus. There's this one track on YouTube that I listen to that's for it's for studying and focusing, and it really helps. I just put it on. It's like a 2 hour long track, and I just put it on in the background with my headphones on while I work.
Yeah.
And it really helps me to stay focused. So I've noticed that it works for me. And then they have ones out there for like weight loss and for happiness and for sleep. They've figured out different binaural beats that put the brain into a certain state.
That's exactly. Yes. Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about that? Like how did they figure out that this specific binaural beat makes someone relaxed for sleep, and this one makes people happy, and this one makes people want to lose weight?
Well, I don't know about the lose weight thing, but I can tell you that if you're calm and peaceful, you may not want to eat as much because you have stress eating syndrome.
There you go.
But we do know about the beta state, and right now I'm in beta, you're in beta, because we are actively listening to each other and thinking. So beta is not a bad state to be in when you are in high beta, and this is those brainwave states are well known. That you are stressed, you're in a lot of traffic, and you're sweating, and you're that kind of high beta. What happens is you're not really thinking clearly in high beta. You're in high stress, and your body interprets that as, we are threatened. So it downshifts into the limbic system, like, I'm going to protect myself. So all of this is not conducive to healing. Now so that's beta. The next one is alpha, and that's the daydreamy place. That's where you're taking everything in, but you're not analyzing or paying extreme attention to something. That's alpha. That's also a very creative place. So that is where you probably go into like this lovely alpha place. With your music. Now, if you were to go into theta, you'd be falling asleep. So, the different brainwave states are fascinating, and they each have a signature brainwave wave that people can see on a screen. So, we know that these two things correspond: the binaural beats and also emotional states, and these different brainwave states.
So how do you, when you're creating binaural beats, how do you know that what you're creating is going to put someone in alpha, or put someone in theta, put someone in a more relaxed state?
I guess I don't know that it will, but that is what when we were finished with our in the studio, we were finished with our tracks, and then I gave it to a sound engineer, and I said, I want theta binaural beats webbed into each of these tracks, and so it was sub-audible. How do I know it will? I don't. I mean, if someone is really convinced that they're going to stay in beta, they can probably override that. But if you say, okay, I'm in for it, whatever, and you just kind of give in, you'll slip into theta or alpha. There is also another phenomena that I know your listeners know about. This, and the scientific term is called isochronic beats, and that is different from binaural beats. Isochronic means the same thing over and over. Isochronic, one thing over and over. And this is what happens when drumming. So you're in a drumming circle, you're getting isochronic beats. If the drumming is fast, then your brainwave state will align with that faster beat. So warriors who want to get ready to go into battle. I mean, if you can remember, what was it? Braveheart. Oh, they were getting ready to go into battle, and the Scottish warriors were gearing up. They heard this loud drum going over and over and over, so everybody was aligning in training to that drum. And there is also a part of the brain that loses touch with reality through that isochronic heavy drumming. This is what puts people into trance state in many indigenous societies, through heavy drumming. It's like the brain just shuts down and doesn't think anymore. It's an interesting phenomena.
It reminds me of being in a stadium, at a sports stadium, where we're all hitting the floor with our feet
Yeah,
and drumming,
yeah,
and it starts off da 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 da, and then the whole stadium is just banging really fast, and
yeah.
you feel like you're not in your body anymore. You really feel just out there, like you're not thinking. You feel like you're totally in the moment. It's a
Mm-hmm.
very intense and very enjoyable experience. But you're right.
Mm-hmm.
You're definitely not just in like regular beta anymore at that
Mm-mm.
point.
Mm-mm. No, you've lifted out, and so yeah, so drumming can be very very healing too. And the slower drumming, remember that you're going to entrain to that slower beat, and that means your brain waves are going to entrain to that slower beat, and you can easily be put into alpha. So if you could just imagine that whole stadium slowing down and everybody slowing everything down, all of a sudden things would get really more peaceful if the drumming or the sounding slowed down.
Hmm. So
Hmm.
you've made this soundscapes.
Hmm.
What other? And I know you have other music for
Hmm.
meditation.
The other CD that we just released is called Hymns, like a hymn to Gaia, Gaia, Hymns to Gaia, and the subtitle is Honoring the Elements. And so we used the same process. Nothing was written down. We went into the studio, and I tried to, didn't have to, but I tried to like match the water element with the sacral chakra, which is has to do with water in your body, and like the fire element was the heart, and very often we see that the heart is, is shown as the fire of love, or the fire. And then we mixed in, after we recorded everything, then we mixed in sounds which would um, show these different elements, like sounds of wind, sounds of water, sounds of fire, like a fireplace in a cozy cabin. And then I also added the ethereal element. Love I saw as an element, and the angelic realm. So those are, I see them as part of our energetic environment that we live in, that we may not always know or recognize, but it's there all the time. So I loved doing this. We had a great time, and it's a different experience, but it can be used as for meditation as well. So it's Hymns to Gaia, Honoring the Elements, and that's also Ikaros, which is what I call. And the name Ikaros actually is what the sacred songs that are sung by the shaman in the Amazon, that's what they call them, their Ikaros. And during sacred ceremony, I was so profoundly moved by the fact that I could actually see the sound in the air. I could see it. And I saw how the beautiful songs that these shamans would sing would heal and help people manage, to come to a place where they're freer and more loving and more centered in themselves through these sounds. So I jumped on board. I said, that's for me.
I love that you traveled the world to learn from the indigenous people. I studied Huna many years
Did
ago.
you?
I studied
Uh-huh.
Huna, ancient Polynesian spiritual practice, and learned to do their chants. And it was, here listening to the chants or doing it myself, I I definitely went into a different state, definitely went into a meditative state, but I
Hmm.
felt my heart would vibrate, my whole chest would feel full of love and full of energy.
Hmm.
Um, it was my prayer for healing, to do the chanting was sort of this meditation asking for healing, and I would just feel that in the moment. It was really a connection. There was a connection there with universal energy. So it was very interesting. My experience with sort of indigenous music for healing. Can you take us back to when you were traveling? Share some stories about or revelations you had as you were traveling and learning from these indigenous people and learning about how they've always used music for healing.
I went because I felt myself that I was in need of some emotional, spiritual growth and healing. And as I told you before, the month before, I um, I promised myself that I would do whatever it took. I was willing to go to anything to get free. And so there were things that happened in my childhood, some um, pretty traumatic things that I wanted to let go of in a way that was loving and that made sense to me, and that I could synthesize the wisdom of those experiences without carrying the trauma. And so this is what drove me is I knew that I needed to be in this lifetime as free as I could. If I was going to offer what I knew I what came here to do, and that is this beautiful music infused with love. So I needed to be infused with love, my own love. So that is why I went. It was like I cannot do this music and carry any trauma or any bitterness or any resentment or any guilt. I needed to free everything. So that's why I went down to be in the jungle with the Shipibo Indians and went through some very, very powerful experiences, Ashley, um, in which I reviewed my whole life from the perspective of love and saw that everything made sense. And so part of this process is experiencing those emotions and then moving through them. So the emotions, the crying and the yelling, and that was part of the release. And I understood the process, and I wasn't afraid of that. What I wanted more than anything, I was not afraid of the crying or anything. I was afraid of carrying resentment and trauma. That was the biggest fear, because that would limit me. So that was my profound gift to myself: is we're going to do this, and we did. um, so that's what drove me, and then because I knew that the sound, having known that sound has led me into the divine places in my own heart. And I've known that since I was a little girl, that I would experience these moments of clarity where I knew there was something much, much more than what I was just seeing out of my eyes. And I had some experience of enlightenment. Um, so I was familiar somewhat, although the traumas in my earlier life sometimes drew a veil over what I knew to be true. So I not only wanted to know it, I wanted to feel it, I wanted to embody as much love as I could. So that means I've got to empty out all the other stuff that isn't loving. So to be a true handmaiden of sound and frequency and love. So that is what I did.
You mentioned that you felt enlightened doing
Hmm.
this. Can you take us back to that moment and share with us the
Yes,
experience?
yes. It happened when I was probably, there are two times that I can recount, which was not a part of a sacred ceremony enlightenment. This just happened spontaneously. One was when I was probably I was about 7 years old, 8 years old, and I was laying on a sidewalk in front of my house in Texas, and it was just starting to be dusk, and I was just looking up at the sky, and I could see the clouds, but I could also see the stars were kind of starting to come out, and something left my body, and I knew that I was a part of that. I knew it. That the little flicker on the sidewalk was just a teeny expression of, and I certainly had no words for it, but I just knew I was part of this greater reality. I was an integral part. I was it. So that happened. Then the next time enlightenment happened, and I think enlightenment is not like one event. It is many, many enlightenment events in which you get to sense the true self in little bits as you can handle it. But I was driving back from a funeral in Philadelphia, and this time I lived in Boston, and I was on actually the Connecticut Turnpike, and I was listening to Pachelbel's Canon, which is a beautiful classical piece, and for me it's just very spiritual. I was listening to Pachelbel's Canon, it's orchestra, and all of a sudden I felt totally enveloped and enclosed in this tube of light that was so bright that I had to pull over because I was so infused with this white light, but it was not bright. It was just brilliant. And of course, I was sobbing because it was so beautiful. And I don't know how long I was by the side of the road in this white light, but ultimately it left, and I can start to cry right now. It was so beautiful that I knew that is what I was. In back of everything, apart from everything, that's what I was. I was this light, and I've been trying to get back there my entire life. But it happened on the wings of music. So when I sing now, or when I perform music, or when I do this music with Daniel, it's like we cross a bridge into a divine playground of beauty and love, and so it's exquisite, is what it is. So I hope my music can impart some of that reality to people, because that's what that is my intention, is to be so connected to love that is what I channel, so it becomes audible love. I mean, that's my wish. So if people can sense this in themselves, then they will know that they are not the anger, they're not the trauma, they're not the fear, they're not the crisis of the moment, that they are something way beyond all of what we here on this dualistic planet experience, and then to identify with that, and to not be afraid. There's no reason to be afraid of anything. There's no reason. It's all love. That's all it is.
I like the saying, we're spiritual beings having a human experience.
Absolutely.
We're spirit, we're energy, we're You know, in the Christian faith, we're made in the image of God, and in other faiths, there's a belief that that God chose to become us to experience this world. There's many different ways of thinking about it, but when it comes down to it, there's so much more than what we can see and touch. That what we can see and touch is the illusion, and that energy is the reality. That energy is this infinite energy is reality, and that the illusion is physical, that the illusion is fear, that the negative emotions are illusions, and that what's true is love.
Yeah.
When you said that you realize that you are that light, and you were sobbing on the side of the turnpike, that you were enveloped with light, but that you remembered that you were light.
Yeah.
In timeline therapy, it's a technique. I'm a practitioner of timeline therapy. In timeline therapy, you go into a light state of trance. You're totally conscious. You travel above your timeline. And when I ask people to go beyond this life, so go beyond your death, people see the same thing. Everyone sees they enter a brilliant light, that it envelops them and is them.
Yeah.
And that you could call that heaven. But with the afterlife, when everyone imagines themselves in this light state of trance, we all see the same thing, and it's this brilliant energy.
Yeah.
And I thought that's just very interesting, that we all perceive when we're not in our body anymore the same, that being this energy. And I've heard so many people who can commune with angels, they all talk about this music that they hear, like the angelic realm is vibrating in this music. And so there's light, energy, and music are all just forms of frequency.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Yeah, and everything vibrates. So through vibration comes sound. And yes.
Now, you mentioned that the latest album you created was to help people release energy. Can you tell us what you meant by that?
Help them. Oh, okay. So I guess I mentioned that if there is something in your etheric body that really is a block to the free flow of your electromagnetic flow, that very often that will show up as discomfort or dis-ease. And so you understand what I'm saying about that, is that if you put yourself, for example, you put yourself in that area or of the didgeridoo, and you felt it. I mean, you felt it in every cell of your being, and I'm sure that was like taking a sound bath. What I do too, I give sound baths once a month at the little clinic where I see my clients, and people come and they bathe themselves. They allow themselves to be bathed in these different frequencies, and that breaks up the. Is this what you were referring to? That breaks up the blockages or the places where the energy gets thick, where it doesn't flow. So there's no flow of chi, so to speak, or prana. And if there is a free flow, then the body is able to bring itself into consonance and heal itself.
Yes. So you talk about maybe the stagnation where people are blocked. It's interesting. In Huna, there's this visualization of the body as a river. Imagine a beautiful river, because in Hawaii, they have these gorgeous rivers. And so you imagine your body as this river, and the river represents the flow of chi, the flow of energy through the body, through the meridian system, through the chakras and meridians. And negative emotions and limiting decisions and unhealed, unresolved past memories are seen as little black bags where there's, that store that negative experience, and are like a big boulder in the
Yeah.
river and distorting the flow of the energy. And so their visualization is all these black bags might be stored in your body, and you imagine a river with no stones, that it flows very nicely, and there's no rapids, there's no turmoil in the river, but you put a bunch of boulders in the river and now there's waves and it's disruptive. And so their description is you want to really work at resolving the trapped negative emotions and limiting decisions and negative past experiences that are stuck in your physical body. They're in your energetic body, but they're actually can be triggered in your physical body, and release them, gain the positive learnings and heal from them, because it cuts off the flow. It creates stagnation.
Exactly.
We said release energy. It reminded me of that. I was a massage therapist back many years ago, and I had a really interesting experience. I was receiving a massage by my instructor in college as a demonstration. I was the demo, and she was working on my back, laterally by my shoulder blade, coming up around my arm on the outside of the armpit, basically. And I began to sob uncontrollably. And I couldn't stop sobbing. The class ended, and she held me, just put her hands on me on the table, and I sobbed for an hour. I couldn't stop. I had no idea what was going on, and I was like released. But she was a massage therapist for many years, so she knew what was going on. 19 years old, that was my first experience with this happening. And she said that, sometimes the body can hold on to the muscle will hold on to that little button, that little trigger. And by getting massage can be a spiritual and an emotional healing tool as well, because it allows you to release these trapped energies. And I imagine combining energy work with, like, for massage therapists listening, combining energy work with your songs would really help. But I've had these experiences. My husband had a similar experience. He went for a Reiki class, and no, it was before the Reiki class. He had Reiki. His girlfriend, this is a long time ago, gave him Reiki, and he burst into tears, sobbed uncontrollably for an hour, and then laughed. And he said he never felt love like that before, just universal love. And then he just became a raving fan of Reiki, because it was just, for him, he just never had anything that allowed him to cry and feel such release. And he had no idea where it was coming from. So we have this trapped in our body. So many of us walk around so stoic because that's what we were taught. But there's this... there's so much available, so many tools out there available for emotional healing, for this release, as you say, so that we can get back in touch with who we truly are, which is connected to spirit, connected to the universal energy, and that we are that love and that light.
Absolutely.
I love that you're creating these tools through your talents to help people achieve that. What about the day-to-day problems that people have with anxiety, procrastination, and motivation? Like, sometimes people get in this cycle of stress that we don't feel stress, right? Stress is kind of like just until we don't feel it until we break, but we do feel anxiety or procrastination, or we do feel sort of get that stuckness or that stagnation in life where we don't have that motivation, and then the anxiety kind of just overwhelms us and we get stuck again. What can we do to break free from that?
Well, I think all of those reflect kind of this, and most of it is subconscious, but that there is some fear around an activity. And we don't know. I mean, it comes up as anxiety, but really, if you keep going down deeper and deeper, there's some fear of what's going to happen, or me not being good enough, or I'm not going to say the right thing. And so what you do is you procrastinate so you don't have to go into what you fear. But you don't really understand where that is coming from because it's subconscious. Again, to realign yourself with your divine self is the way out of that. And to become your, like, another person, a person that is not caught up in their daily routines of being a certain way or feeling a certain way about a person or going through the same habits. So you then try to create this other self that is more whole, more happier. And some of this is through your own observation. Oh, there I am. I'm doing it again. I don't want to do that because I want my life to be about happiness and love and compassion. So I'm going to choose to do this. And sometimes it's hard to give up, Ashley, because I find that people, and I know you probably find the same, they have an investment in being a victim, or they have an investment in being hurt or bitter. So there's a payoff for them. So if they really want to get well, then they're going to have to give up their addiction to those negative reactions and say, nope, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to go towards love. And I meditate every day. So that I continue to stay connected to the divine expression of who I am. And sure, there are times when I'm human, so, and I get angry at drivers on the road that are, doing stupid stuff. So, but at least I'm aware. Oh, I lost touch with myself. So send that person compassion instead of the alternative. But it takes awareness, and it takes such an investment in wanting to be free or to be whole or to be in love with yourself and in love with the world. But if people knew, and this is what I am trying to do, is to give you a taste of what the peach tastes like. This is the peach. The peach is the best. But if somebody says, I don't know what a peach is, I don't even know if I want to come over there and have a peach. So, I like it over here eating French fries. So that's what I try to do through this music, is to say, this is the peach. I'm going to give you a little taste of it. Do you like it? If you like it, there's a lot more. So that's the deal. So, when I go over there and I'm eating French fries and I'm thinking, oh my God, I will back off and say, look at you, Flicka, you're eating French fries when you could be having a peach.
Right. We all indulge in the self-pity and the anger and all that. We all, it's the ego wants to have a little fun, and the ego gets to, have its fun. But then to become the observer and go, oh, isn't that interesting that I did that? Isn't that interesting? What's the payoff there?
Yeah.
Is this the quality of life I really want? Well, no. Okay, so my ego got to have some fun. Let's get back to creating a connection with the divine and getting back to remembering that I am love. So that is, you definitely need to become conscious of it. There's stages of mastery. The first, being unconscious of it. We're totally unconscious. And then there's that conscious incompetence where we have to keep catching ourselves and building that muscle and going, oh, look, I did it again. But now you caught yourself only 5 minutes into being angry instead of 15 minutes into being angry, right? And then we keep catching ourselves. My husband is a great example. He used to really have a lot of road rage where, he wouldn't take it out on people except, the people in the car would notice he wasn't happy. And, I'd say I would catch him and be like, you don't know what that person might be having a really bad day. Maybe they just didn't see you in their blind spot. You're always assuming the worst. And so just reminding him. And now bad drivers don't bother him, whereas they used to really, really, he's a Virgo. So no one can, everyone has to be perfect on the road apparently. But now he can just He can just let it go. And and it's funny because he'll catch himself and he'll be like, he'll say, do you see that? Do you see that? That person cut me off and I didn't freak out. Do you see it? So he got to the point where he's catching himself going, oh, look, I didn't do that old behavior. Or he'll catch himself getting angry and then go, oh, okay, that's not who I want to be. That's not the quality of life I want. I'm not going to choose that. But we have to catch ourselves. So in the catching of ourselves, we create a break state of our neurology, and we're creating a new neural pathway.
Exactly. Yes. Now I wrote about this very same thing, the road rage, because it happened. I'm so with your husband here. I do it too, although it's been so long since I've allowed that to change the stress hormones, which are released when you get angry. But I did the same thing. And I mentioned this in my book. I want to make sure that we know that all of this information is in my book. That what I've learned to do is to say, I don't know what's going on with that person, but they may be going to the hospital to see a loved one, or they have some emergency. So I reframe the event so that I can stay centered in myself and not get thrown out of who I really am, because ultimately I'm the one who pays. The person who, cut me off, I mean, they're on their merry way, but I am left with all these horrible stress hormones coursing, the adrenaline coursing through my body, and I don't like the way that feels. So, some of it is self-preservation. I'm going to stay loving because it's best for me, and ultimately, of course, everybody else. But yeah, that is a technique I'm continue. Of course, we all continue to learn, but it has become a lot easier. Is to look at the event and reframe it so that I don't spin out of control. Yeah.
Do you have stories that you can share from people who have had positive experiences listening to your CDs? Has anyone shared with you results?
Oh yeah. A lot of people have said that just listening to my CD, it is extremely grounding and comforting and loving. A friend of mine who actually lives in Mexico, I just got back from Mexico. She was going through an extremely difficult period, and she is a shaman, and she said that she saw into that music what it does. And I can't do that, but she has that ability. And she said it is it heals DNA. Now I don't know that, Ashley, but I'm telling just what she said. And she had been through a huge trauma in her life. So she listened to it like 2 hours a day. And she said it really helped her come back into herself, because trauma tends to separate us from ourselves.
Right. Well, trauma, they can actually test DNA and see if your ancestor had trauma. They've proven this because, we're learning so much about DNA and epigenetics. Epigenetics means that the certain DNA that can turn on and off, that become like suppressed or can activate, and that it can turn on and off different enzymatic processes in the body. The best example is, and I've said this on the podcast before, but for new listeners, they did a study where they took white mice, these cute, fluffy, soft white mice, and they exposed them to the same amount of bisphenol A, BPA, per body weight that we would be exposed to on a daily basis if we were to touch receipts every day when we buy things. There's BPA on there. Drinking from plastic bottles and cans that have BPA. And you might think, well, I don't buy those things. But if you eat out at any kind of restaurant, you have exposure to BPA, because restaurants really don't care. They're going to buy the cheapest things possible. So their canned foods or sauces, whatever, their condiments are going to have BPA in them. Through the food industry, BPA is just leached into our food unless you eat a whole food plant-based diet where you're buying organic and just cooking everything from scratch, which is what I teach. I just launched a membership called Learn Your Health Home Kitchen, and I teach that, how to cook whole foods so that you're getting the purest nutrition you can to heal the body through food. And so this BPA, they expose these mice to it, and the mice quickly turned yellow. Their fur went from white to yellow and from a nice softness to a coarse straw-like feel, and then they became obese. And they didn't really change their diet other than giving them the BPA, but what it did is epigenetically change
Mm-hmm.
their genes
Yeah.
to make them
Yes.
become obese and to make them not be able to make beautiful fur.
Yeah.
Then they stopped giving the mice BPA, and it took several generations. They followed these mice for several generations before they just fed them water and food instead of the BPA. But it was like, I think it was over 3 generations until the mice returned back to being white again and having the soft white fur and no longer being obese. So the epigenetically their DNA was damaged for several
Yeah.
generations, and we see this with ancestors of those in the Holocaust during World War II, those who
Mm-hmm.
spent time in Auschwitz or were, severely emotionally harmed during World War II. Even their grandchildren, they can see when they do DNA tests, they can see the epigenetic gene expressions of trauma, of stress. They have higher levels, just at resting state, of stress hormones. So what we do in this lifetime will affect our grandchildren directly through our DNA, and the healing that we do and the detoxifying and the nutrifying that we do, they're seeing now can actually affect our DNA for generations to come. So it's not only healing yourself, that you're healing for your children and grandchildren. I think it's really fascinating. So the fact that this healer sees that your music has a role to
Mm-hmm.
play in healing DNA,
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be surprised. Everything is energy.
There is a study that I mentioned in my book, and I'm sorry, I don't have it at my fingertips, but I'll recount what it was. It was a study done by taking some DNA, in which they put into a petri dish, and they subjected it to heat. So the DNA, quote, died, unquote, or it uncurled. So it was essentially destroyed. And then they had people hold the dish with the hurt DNA and directed loving thoughts to I know this sounds crazy, to the DNA, and the DNA recoiled. So there is a way through love to heal ourselves and to heal the DNA that has been traumatized through toxic thoughts, experiences, downregulated, so to speak. And that's through the power of love, which carries probably I'm thinking a very coherent geometry, and that the DNA can then reform around this coherent geometry, which that's also a huge subject that we could talk about. How they're now understanding that this field that we are in, the 0 point field, is filled with information and energy, but there is a uniform geometry that they're finding that is common throughout everything, that saturates everything. I don't know if you know the work of Nassim Haramein. He's a physicist in Hawaii, actually, and has been studying the geometry, the geometric shape of the field.
Interesting. It's reminding me, what you're saying is reminding me of Masura Emoto,
Sure.
his work, the
Yes.
book, The Hidden Messages in Water, where he would emit love or hate and freeze water. And you would see, then under a microscope, you see that water looks so beautiful and the geometric shapes are just divine when you emit love to it. But when you emit hate or anger, it looks distorted and
Right.
polluted.
And then they give the polluted water to some Japanese monks and have them love that water, and they take another sample and the water has reformed into those coherent shapes. So is it sounds to me like love is the variable that, that helps things become more ordered. Are you familiar with the work of Hans Jenny and cymatics?
It sounds
Which,
really familiar, but I don't know. Tell us.
okay, so cymatics is the study of sound made visible. So what he did, and this was in like the early 1900s, maybe up through the 50s, is he would take like a brass plate and sprinkle particulates on it or sand,
Oh, yes.
and then introduce a specific pitch. And then the sound would form into these beautiful, like mandalas, beautiful shapes that correspond, and it's reproducible under the same circumstances, that they would always form the same shape. And then there were other researchers who put particulates in water, and the same thing would happen once introduced to specific pitches or frequencies. So snowflakes, I think snowflakes just are showing us the geometry of the field. And if the field is love, then that is like the Rosetta Stone of all of these expressions. So my music is tuned to A 432, and I don't know if you're familiar with all of that work. It's a way of tuning, Ashley, so it will sound warmer to you. So it's a little bit not as sharp. It's a little bit under pitch, because we tune to A at 440 hertz now. That's universally, all music is at A 440 hertz, but throughout history, certainly in the Romantic period, it's a musical period, and before, instruments were tuned lower than 440 hertz, some higher, but for the most part, it's 432 hertz, because when you see pitches tuned at 432 hertz, the geometry is beautiful, and it's coherent, and it's much more balanced. So knowing all of that, all of my music is at 432 hertz, which sounds warmer. So your body can accept that geometry because it matches. Because of the whole kind of sacred geometry and the Fibonacci spiral and everything, is all of those shapes that we see in nature are then reproduced in the sound. That if the instruments are tuned down to 432 hertz, have you heard an orchestra that the oboe plays one note and then everybody kind of tunes off of that one note that the oboe plays? Have you ever experienced that when you go to a symphony orchestra? Well, they do.
Okay.
And the oboe then is toning an A pitch at 440 hertz. Then everybody else in the orchestra tunes to that. But if the oboist drops it just a little bit to 432 hertz, then the orchestra would tune down a little bit, and the sound is warmer to your ears, and your body can accept that because that is our natural. We are sacred geometry beings. Geometrically, we align with that.
How would an oboist know? I mean, how does a musician know to go to, like, I can understand knowing how to play a C note, but how do you play hertz? How do you know to go to a certain hertz? Do you need a device to read the hertz?
Yeah, and there are lots of tuners out now that you can get that will direct you to that 432 hertz. Now, both of my CDs are tuned down to 432, A at 432 hertz. Certainly every note is a different hertz, because hertz designates the frequency and the pitch, but you have to have a touchstone. You say, okay, I'm going to use this as my tuning center. And yeah, the oboist, they can even use a tuner. So they'll hold up a little tuner, they'll blow into the tuner, woo, and then they'll go to their oboe and they'll make sure that they match that tuner. So you ask me, why did things change? Because it used to be that things were tuned down to A432. And there's a whole conspiracy theory
Oh, I
that's
want to hear
built
it.
up around. Oh, you do?
I
Oh
want to
my
hear
God.
it.
Okay, we got into it.
So, because back before TV, I mean, music was that's what we did. That was entertainment. Even kings and queens, 500 years ago would pay composers. It was a status symbol to have a composer write you. I mean, that's sort of my dream is I'm going to win the lottery one day and like I'll pay a composer to make me a symphony. I just think like
Sure.
it's such a outlandish but beautiful thing to promote the arts, obviously. But just imagine if you had the ability to have a composer write you a song, and so that was such a big deal. And music, we bathed ourselves in music so often, and now we watch TV and
I know.
don't bathe
Actually,
ourselves in music. And this was my dad's that was his mission, was to get people back to listening to music. That's one of his things why he invented his speakers and promoted that. I lived it. I lived his, vision. My dad's time was before cell phones, but his thing was, why do families come home and stare at a boob tube together when they could put on music and they could talk and they could connect and they could have this loving family time. And he wanted people to return back to that. So tell me the conspiracy theory around changing the hertz in music. When did that take place?
okay. Well, first of all, your dad was so right on. I mean, there is nothing that forms bonds of loving feelings than doing music together. I mean, what would going to church be without everybody getting up and singing a hymn? So there's this energetic flow that happens through making music or listening to music together. Yay, Dad. So, no, the conspiracy theory, and I tend to think it's not so much conspiracy that it's really true, is that during the Second World War, before the Second World War, there were lots of composers. This very famous composer, Verdi, I don't know, it's Giuseppe Verdi, wrote many operas, and he insisted that his orchestra tuned to 432 because he said it is easier on his sopranos, which means, and what he didn't know is that the geometry of the body matched that specific way of tuning. And if you tune up, it goes against the geometry of your body. So he was a big believer in that. But at World War II, there was this whole propaganda machine that Hitler got into play as a way of controlling the German population. And one way he wanted to control them is to make them a little bit anxious, because if you have people who are anxious, they're going to get behind a guy who says, I got the way out for us. We're going to go out and we're going to conquer the world, but you don't want them feeling comfortable and loving. No, you want them on edge because you can control them. So Goebbels, his minister of propaganda, decided that all the music that they were going to use is going to be up at 440 hertz, which makes you feel a little bit more on edge. Now you can go to YouTube right now and look at examples. Look up 432 versus 440, and you can hear the same piece played tuned A440 and the same piece of music played at 432, and just subjectively experience that. And that's easy to do. I mean, that's fun.
Be fun is get your partner, like you get blindfolded and get your partner to randomly choose whether they're going to play the 440 hertz, which creates anxiety, versus the 432 hertz, which is healing. And then you feel your body and you see if you feel on edge or if you feel, connected and happy and content. That would be a fun home experiment.
Right. Yeah. Yes. Well, Subjectively, I feel better when I hear music in 400. And here, I wonder if I could do it right now, because I have my my tuner on my phone. All right, so here is, and I'm going to tune this so that your listeners can hear this. Here is a note played in 432. Okay, now here is the same note played in 440.
It does sound just like a little bit anxious. I got that. Yeah.
Yeah. So here's again 432. This is the calm pitch. Okay. And now here is 440. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So Hitler made all the music be played at 440 hertz.
40 hertz.
440 to make people anxious, and so they're not happy with their present situation in life.
Exactly.
Oh
yeah, that's the way you control people, engender fear and anxiety and stress. And they're going to look for a way so that can go away. And so he said, follow me, I'll make that go away.
How did he know to do that?
That I don't know, Ashley.
That's really
that I do not know. But interestingly enough, after World War II, and there's also other conspiracy theories that the Rockefellers, who were invested in a lot of I'm not sure I'm trailing all of this correctly, but I knew they were involved, is that then they approached the American Federation of Musicians and then the Worldwide Federation to make the standard 440. Now, you can say maybe they wanted us all on edge so that they could control us, and that was a worldwide conspiracy. I don't know.
Sure.
But that is what happened, so that a flute player in the United States can go to an orchestra in Japan and they'll tune the same way. So there had to be a standard, but they chose that higher standard so that the population would feel ill at ease and not as anchored or centered.
That's so interesting, because we listen to classical music in the car. Often we're driving with our son. We often, most of the time, I say 90% of the time, we're listening to classical music. And there are some times when I feel like I should be very comfortable and at ease, and that's a beautiful song, but I'm not, and I get agitated. I'm like, what's going on? The music is, and I have to like change it to a different classical station. And I'm just wondering if that was the hertz. Very interesting that they chose to stick to 440 hertz around the world. To be, well, the thing is that if they knew they could prosper from it, because when you are feeling uncomfortable in your own skin, you will seek dopamine. You will seek pleasure. So you'll spend money, and you won't spend time doing internal exploration, becoming a sovereign individual, becoming, a higher thinker, becoming more spiritually connected. You're going to spend more time trying to soothe the anxiety through
buying stuff,
staying in low level. So it's easier to control a population that's uncomfortable or that's in pain. Then control a population of very comfortable, happy, free thinkers. So that really does make sense. So we want to make sure, we want to be conscious. This is why my husband doesn't he prefers that we don't listen to music with words, because he doesn't want to be enslaved to the mainstream narrative. So I'll just say that. Because when you're listening to music, you're in a state of trance. And if you're taking in words that are telling you the world is a certain way, then you are a slave to that narrative. And if you dive into the history of the music industry, there's a lot of control there. So you just did, but there's modern day music industry. There's a lot of control there. And so I like to listen to independent musicians
Mhm.
who aren't trying to manipulate us, but are just trying to spread love like you are. And so we're being conscious. I think I like that you're really bringing up a point to be conscious of the music you play because it can be used as a weapon against you or used as a tool to
Mhm.
heal.
Yeah, that's I my business partner. Her name is Tammy McCrary. She also was a co-author with me. She wrote the last chapter in my book, and she is a manager for artists in Los Angeles. And she absolutely sees that the music that is being offered now is very detrimental because, yeah, you're right. People do, they are entranced when they listen to music. And so that allows the message of the words to just to be accepted blindly by by a brain that is not really thinking. So
It's hypnosis.
exactly, Ashley, yes.
Right.
So so her goal is to wake up the musicians, and say, you have this incredible power you've been given. Be very careful with this because you
Mm.
create the future of our young people. And I get very concerned for them. I really do.
Mm-hmm.
I certainly don't listen to it, but your husband is right. Don't be enslaved by. Yeah, but see, no, I didn't think about that. You are in a kind of a hypnotic trance.
Sure. I'm a
Yeah,
master practitioner and trainer of hypnosis. So you're talking about that music sends you from beta to alpha.
yeah,
What's
yeah,
hypnosis? And
yeah.
then you're taking in words that have suggestions that
Right.
create imagery in your mind. Even at an unconscious level, those are it's slipping past the conscious mind and slipping into and becoming unconscious suggestions.
So there's no evaluation. It just goes straight in.
Right. You're not using your critical thinking.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Right.
Amazing.
And so if you
Whoa.
listen to something over and over again and you like really, I mean, I have a friend who listens to heavy metal and he's just a very angry person
Yeah,
and he reinforces it. And you've said this earlier, but he reinforces it with the music he
yeah,
chooses to listen to. The
yeah,
music we choose to listen to can reinforce our neurology, can reinforce what our the way we're thinking, and our thoughts create our actions create our behavior and our results in life.
yeah,
So if
absolutely.
we want to be in a state of loving empathy and be able to connect with others, we need to make sure the music we choose matches that, and hopefully at 432 hertz now that we know
Yes.
that.
Yeah, right. And yeah, and there are stations or YouTube stations that have, um, um, this is not ideal, but they've tuned things down like orchestral pieces, the famous ones. It's certainly better if it's recorded uh, from 430 hertz rather than to be manipulated by a sound engineer to drop it down. But that's better. So that may be interesting for you to listen to two expressions of the same piece to see,
Mm.
you know?
Oh, so cool. Well, what's really interesting is after this interview, I'm rushing off with my son to take him to the Seattle Children's Chorus, where he is
Oh,
taking classes. He's
wow.
4 years old. He's
Yeah.
about to be 5, but he's taking singing classes, and it's so adorable to see these 4-year-olds
Oh my
singing
God.
together. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm doing later today. So I'm about to go bathe myself for an hour in children's
Oh,
singing, which I'm really looking forward to.
the
Flicka
best.
Rahn, it has been such a pleasure having you here today. I would love to have you back. This has been so much fun exploring this. Thanks for getting into the really interesting topics. And this is the kind of stuff I just love exploring. I really feel like we hit the meat of it by understanding that we want to vibrate with the frequency of 432, that we want to
Mhm.
choose music that is meant to heal us, and make sure that we avoid music that isn't going to bring us healing, that isn't a the either the lyrics or the sound is not in alignment with our healing goals. We want to be conscious of that because music can be a weapon or can be a tool for healing. So I love that you uncovered that for us. Is there anything you'd like to say to wrap up today's interview?
Um, No, I just want to really encourage people to my, like if you're changing a pattern, be aware. So just be aware of what you're hearing. Go into the supermarket and be aware of what you're hearing. Or if you're out in nature, I mean, though the sound of the birds carry such high healing frequencies that and so you're being bathed in those beautiful higher frequencies that are natural in the natural world. I think just waking up and just saying, what am I really hearing here? What am I listening to? And is that helping me? Or do I feel more loving now? Or do I feel more anxious now? And just maybe understand that sound can have a huge impact on you, as we know. I mean, it's so it's sound and music. And to not forget about the beautiful gift of toning, and how quickly you can move to a place of peace and just calmness by doing that, and if you go to your dentist, give it a shot. It works. Yes. I tell you.
Awesome. Cool. I'm going to tell my husband, he's got a dental cleaning coming up next week. So I'm going to teach this to him. That's so cool. Flicka, thank you so much. Of course, the links to everything that Flicka Rahn does is going to be in the show notes of today's podcast at learntruehealth.com. And I've decided I'm going to edit this episode. So listeners who are hearing this have already experienced, I'm going to sprinkle your music throughout the episode, and also now at the end of the episode. Thank you so much for gifting us some of your music that we could include in this. And if listeners would like to buy your music and buy your book, please check out the show notes of today's podcast, where you'll find the links to Flicka's book and her CDs. And also, we'd love to, I'm sure, love to see you live. So tell me if you're ever going to be up in Seattle. And on your website, do you display where you are when you tour?
That is forthcoming.
Okay,
so let's just
looking forward to that. Looking forward to seeing that information on your website. Excellent.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much, Flicka.
Oh, thank you, Ashley. It's been delightful, really, honey. And have fun tonight with your son.
I will.
Great.
Hello, true health seeker. Have you ever thought about becoming a health coach? Do you love learning about nutrition and how we can shift our lifestyle and our diet so that we can gain optimal health and happiness and longevity? Do you love helping your friends and family to solve their health problems and to figure out what they can do to eat healthier? Are you interested in becoming someone who can grow their own business, support people in their success? Do you love helping people? You might be the perfect candidate to become a health coach. I highly recommend checking out the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. I just spent the last year in their health coaching certification program, and it really blew me away. It was so amazing. I learned over 100 dietary theories. I learned all about nutrition, but from a standpoint of how we can help people to shift their life and shift their lifestyle to gain true holistic health. I definitely recommend you check them out. You can Google Institute for Integrative Nutrition or IIN and give them a call, or you can go to learntruehealth.com/coach and you can receive a free module of their training to check it out and see if it's something that you'd be interested in. Be sure to mention my name, Ashley James, and the Learn True Health podcast, because I made a deal with them that they will give you the best price possible. I highly recommend checking it out. It really changed my life to be in their program, and I'm such a big advocate that I wanted to spread this information. We need more health coaches. In fact, health coaching is the largest growing career right now in the health field. So many health coaches are getting in and helping people because you can work in chiropractic offices, doctors' offices, you can work in hospitals, you can work online through Skype and help people around the world. You can become an author, you can go into the school system and help your local schools shift their programs to help children be healthier. You can go into senior centers and help them to shift their diet and lifestyle to best support them in their success and their health goals. There's so many different available options for you when you become a certified health coach. So check out IIN, check out the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, mention my name, get the best deal, give them a call and they'll give you lots of free information and help you to see if this is the right move for you. Classes are starting soon. The next round of classes are starting at the end of the month. So you're going to want to call them now and check it out. And if you know anyone in your life who would be an amazing coach, please tell them about it. Being a health coach is so rewarding and you get to help so many people. Are you looking to get the best supplements at the lowest price? For high quality supplements and to talk to someone about what supplements are best for you, go to takeyoursupplements.com and one of our fantastic true health coaches will help you pick out the right supplements for you that are the highest quality and the best price. That's takeyoursupplements.com. Takeyoursupplements.com. That's takeyoursupplements.com. Be sure to ask about free shipping and our awesome referral program.